Right, so I'm Dave Thompson. This is Hyperbright Studios, and I am going to go through a kind of drum session mixing project that um, actually, no, it's a tracking project rather than a mixing project. And I wanted to talk about some of the microphone techniques that I'd used, and, basically how I'd got the sound that I got. So if I play through, this is the drums with everything. Okay, so that's with no bus compression. That's no actual compression on the on anything. That's just literally the channel strip as they came through. Now, what is interesting about this to me is that right at this tracking stage, everything sounds really, really full and big, and like usually when you haven't got to the kind of souping things up with compression and things like that. Things at this stage usually still sound a bit dry and a bit lifeless. However, I've been using this new plugin called it is the Neve 1084, and I'll just bring it up here. And it's this plugin strip here that's by Universal Audio, and what I've been able to do, because I've got two interfaces next to each other, I've got daisy chained to each other, so I've got the Apollo XP going into an Apollo X4, so I've been able to do 12 channels of a Neve 1084 console. So every single channel on here has been treated using the same channel strip, and I just want to talk about some of the decisions that I've made along the way. Now, I'm just going to start with a kick drum here, because what I did was I put a Beta 91A inside of the bass drum with a like a foam kind of mute slash seat for the microphone, and that sounds like this. And then what I've also done is I put a actually it's a Thomann SM57 copy. It's not a real SM57, and I've just put that on the beta. And even though it's pointed away from the snare, you can still get quite a bit of the under snare captured onto there. But that's not really too much of a problem. What happens is when you get the kick drum combined, you get the attack and then the body of the kick drum sound from two different sources. So it works. I mean, the Shure Beta 91A in the past, what I've done is just kind of tweak it using a transient, like a transient processor, say like Smack Attack or a SPL transient controller. Just to basically bring out the attack a little bit more. But with doing this, I'm basically achieving the same thing, but with microphones and microphone positioning, and it really does work. That's what I want from a bass drum, really. In terms of the snare, now I've been very lucky recently. You see in front of me, I have this microphone called a Sennheiser 421 microphone, and these are legendary for use on toms and things like that. They're also really good for voiceover for things like this. And this particular drum setup, he only wanted one rack tom and one floor tom, so I was in a position where I was able to put the snare top and the snare bottom with the Sennheiser 421. So you got the top here, and the bottom here, blended. Now, that sounds a little bit dull and a little bit ringy by itself, but when you combine it, one of the real golden things that I learned from this is like the overheads that I've just got, which are a pair of Neumann KM184s, and they sound like this. Now that overall slightly more distant snare sound that comes from the overhead sounds absolutely amazing, and when you combine that with the attack that you get from the really close mics, and then you get a really nice snare sound with the two microphones combined. Okay, and then the hi-hat again was the hi-hat microphone was a AKG C1000, and that was again going through a Neve 1084. And I'll just see if I can bring up the settings that I had for that one. So one of the things that I found with this, that initial preset that I loaded up for this had a really huge amount of top end, and the C1000 to me is quite a top endy microphone anyway, so I kind of rolled off a lot of the additive high end EQ, and I did that with the bottom snare microphone as well, because I just felt it was just the presets that they'd got just added far too much top end. So the actual drum sound now is quite a natural sounding EQ, because I've taken a lot of the extra top end that was added on by other things. So if I just go through, that was the bass drum setup. So there's a little bit of mid-range being taken off and a little bit of low end being taken off around the kind of was that in the 90 hertz area? There's some added at the 90 hertz area, and then some taken away at 350 hertz, and then the top is kind of left to it. Then on the top snare, a little bit of additive 4.8 kilohertz, and quite a lot of additive 220 to add a bit of body to the bottom of the snare. And then on the bottom snare, there was quite a lot of top end added, but I've since taken that away. There's a little bit of added 4.8 and quite a lot of added 220, so it's very similar setup. Then on the hi-hat, a little bit extra high end. There was loads, it was up here somewhere, and there was a lot of added on which I felt was too much. And then a little bit less 3.2, so you tend to get quite a lot of harshness around the 3.2 kilohertz ratio. Frequency on hi-hat. So taking around the 3.2 off will take away some of that harshness. and a little bit less 220. I guess the logic of that is to try and take out some of the frequencies from bass drum or whatever, but to be honest, it's only a very tiny difference, so it might have been something that I just did by ear. The Tom 1, I've added quite a bit of 3.2, which seemed to resonate with that rack tom sound, then taken off a bit of low end. Then 7 and 8 channels were kind of skipped, and actually I've changed the other settings on my things since. Let's see if I can find a preset there. It's like this was 3 and 4 originally. If I go to let's switch it to the actual preamp that it was. So it's Neve 1084, and then I picked an overhead. It was an overhead I think it was from the Jacko King. And then that overhead preset adds a bit of 16K and takes away a bit of 0.7, and the low frequency range one is just off. And yeah, there was a room mic setup that I had as well. If I just go quickly and just set up the preamp for that as I had it, I had another preset that I had loaded up for that. I think that was again under the Jacko King setup. Might have been that one, I think it was. So yeah, that one takes a bit of the high end off. So what you're wanting from a room sound is not necessarily a trebly sound, but something that's warm, and so that you can push it a bit with some compression, basically. And then the room mic often acts like a bit like a side chain, not a side chain, a parallel compression kind of effects that you can really push through on that particular microphone with loads and loads of compression, and then just kind of mix it in with the rest of the kit. So you've still got the attack of the rest of the kit, but you can really add some grunginess with the room mic. And the other tom was about the same, so that's about it really. Just looking at the rack tom, if I just find a bit where it does it, there is somewhere where he does some rack tom, I'm sure. Oh, actually, at the beginning there's quite a lot of floor tom. But, I mean, that's also kind of picked up on the overhead. Now, if I were to actually mix these drums, what I feel at this point is that I've got it so sounding so nice at the tracking stage that this is a bit of a mixer's dream really, because a lot of the work is already done. If you wanted to add like some bus compression, then you could do, and say if you go to somewhere like here, let's pick something like, let's go for the Chandler Zenner. Now that takes off quite a little bit off on the factory setting. If I go to something like drum parallel compression, I mean, that just sounds huge straight away. that's if you want something that's really, really pushed. If you want something that's a little bit more transparent, you could try something like an SSL Bus compressor. Say something like this. Let's go for a that's an aggressive drum bus, but that's a really pushed drum bus. And that's a gentle compression, so you can get quite a lot of the punchiness through from that. Although that is really, that's really, really loud. I'll set the ratio up a bit higher, bring the volume down a bit. I think that's a bit too much. Something more like that, so it's not. I'm saying that it actually sounds better without any compression on. It just sounds really, really fat. I don't know whether that's just because it's coming out of the aux setting louder. This is actually one of my favourite compression plugins. It's a plugin called Track Comp by DMG Audio. And one of the reasons that I love about it is that you've got this auto gain that you can set to like compute setting, where you can set your threshold wherever you want it, and the auto sets the makeup gain intelligently so the output is exactly the same as the input. So just literally you can really set it to extreme settings, and the makeup gain will I know this is a setting where it kind of automatically makes up for it when you got it set to auto gain on makeup. Sometimes it takes a second for it to work out where it needs to be. Then you go back to here and it'll reset the makeup gain to exactly where you need it for the output to be right. It's genius. And then you've got models of all of these compressors that we talk about, like the Sennheiser, the DBX160, the 1176, the LA2A. There's a couple of different types of 76s on here. The G-Bus, like SSL compressor, or the E-channel, which I think is another SSL compressor. So you've got like loads of different compressors here, but you've also got the advantages of these auto gain features and things like that, which is really, really cool. I mean, you can see what it sounds like with the Sennheiser. See what it sounds like a Sennheiser, but with the auto makeup gain. gain. Does the auto gain work on that one? So there's like lots of different settings that you could do with just say literally with a bus compressor, and because all of the EQs kind of worked out of the tracking process, you don't have to do a huge amount of work afterwards for it to sound good. So yeah, I think that's about all I could cover with on this one. Yeah, so this is Dave Thompson. I've been on Hyperbright Studios, and I will get some more of these done in the future, and I hope that was interesting for you. All right, thank you very much. Bye bye.